Welcome back, Mamas. Today we have Rachel Oxenfeld, and I'm excited to have her. I met her through Facebook, and we've never actually met in person, which is fun. But I've just followed her along for the last couple years. I don't even know how long we've been Facebook friends now. And I just love what she's about. She is a turned medical professional, turned entrepreneur. She is just inspiring and uplifting, and she does all different types of businesses, and so she has lots of wisdom to share with us today. So, with that, Rachel, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm super happy to be on with you, you beautiful gals. I been following your podcast for a little while, and it's just really wonderful what you ladies are doing because this is such a needed space. Especially, I'm not a mom yet. Someday I will be, but especially for moms.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
and you don't have to be a mom. We have so many women that are part of our community that aren't moms. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Really,
really just
women
for
need
women.
community
Yeah.
is what it's all about. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I grew up in, I just like to say Jefferson County, Missouri, because I've literally lived everywhere in Jefferson County. It feels like, so I'm from the Midwest. Um, I am a dog mom. I have two puppies and a senior dog,
Hmm.
whom I love very much.
Aw.
They'll live forever. Not really, I'm in a
So
little bit of.
sad though.
She's a cutie. She's my favorite. Blue nose pits are my favorite. So,
Mhm.
Yes. So I have a blue nose pit, a 11 month old German Shepherd, and then she's a year, so I still call her a puppy, but she's a pit bull as well. So yeah, I have a boyfriend who is amazing. Actually got me into the entrepreneurial space. Um, we we kind of linked up. It's so I don't know. Part of the story, I'm always like, people are like, how did you guys meet? And I'm like, Instagram.
Oh, yay. Oh, that's cute.
We live in the social media age, so it's it shouldn't
so
be.
who DM'd who first?
Dave DM'd me first, and
Aw.
that's actually really funny because we joke about it. He DM'd me on Instagram and he's like, you love Jesus, you're in the military, and he said something else too. Oh, and you're beautiful. Why don't we know each other? And I was like, who is this person? I was like, what?
Yeah. Nice try, buddy.
Right. But yeah, so we just met through mutual friends on Instagram. He's actually from Illinois. Um, and yeah, we met during COVID, so it was a very interesting first part of our relationship because we couldn't really do anything but eat at my apartment. We got food and that's pretty much it. So watch movies, but he's amazing. He's a part of my story as well as just allowing me to kind of sink in more into my feminine and not be so masculine. So a little bit about the rest of my story, I should say. My my parents have been divorced since I was 3, so I feel like when I tell my story, I always say that I wasn't really set up for success, but I feel like a lot of people really aren't set up for success in this society, anyways. But my parents have been divorced since I was 3, so my mom ended up getting remarried later. So I did have a father figure in my life, which was really good. I moved a ton in my life. I don't know how many times I've moved. Dave and I talk about that a lot, that we just hired a mover for our move. And I was like, I'm not touching a darn thing ever again when we move. Cause I'm like, I'm tired of moving. So, I've been through some unfortunate trauma in my life. Obviously that's part of my story as well. Abusive relationships, unfortunately. Um, I've done quite a bit like the career space. I was a vet tech for a little while. I went to school for that. Um, Joined the military because I realized that being a vet tech wasn't going to pay the bills, really. I loved what I did, but it just wasn't going to work. And then I ended up becoming a nurse. I was fortunate to obviously serve in the military and then use that to get my bachelor's degree in nursing. And then,
Did you enjoy the military? Real quick, I was just gonna
yeah, no,
ask
you're
that
fine.
just because it's like I feel like mostly male, dominant. So
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I did enjoy the military up until the end, and I think it's because I started to realize Dave and I met like probably a little bit over half of the way of me being in the military. He was also military, and my eyes just started opening to new opportunities, and I realized that trading my time for money or even serving my time for money, like in the military, it just wasn't going to work anymore. And so I did enjoy it. I got tons of experience. The field that I was specifically in was in the medical community. So I feel like it was pretty well versed as far as like men and, women. But yeah, and I also was in the military during COVID. So, and nursing school. So it was kind of like such a weird time. It was such a weird time for me. But yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so keep going with
Yeah.
then you were vet tech or was that, yeah.
Yeah. So after the military, I was doing nursing school through the military, through my time in the military, and graduated. Actually, I graduated and ended my military career honestly, in the same month, which is kind of odd. And got my
It's
nursing
like,
job.
now what, right? Can
Do
can
it.
we can I just pause real quick? My
Mhm.
mic, I was having issues. Samantha, did you ask her or did you share why you decided to get into the military? I just find that curious for women. You see men getting in there. So did you touch on that at all?
Yeah, and I mean, part of that too was, I grew up with a very masculine father figure, as in like overbearing kind of. So I always kind of adopted that, and I was like, well, I have to be in the military. My dad was also military,
Mm-hmm.
so it really wasn't like at first it wasn't really an opportunity like, oh, I can go to nursing school. It was really honestly just because I feel like I was trying to prove myself,
Yeah.
and in a way that I didn't really have to, I don't have to prove myself, and then it turned into, I wasn't making the money that I wanted to in the vet tech field. And that was like, you know what? I'm going to sign my butt up for the military and we're going to go to nursing school. So, yeah, after that, I mean, I was a nurse for 4 months. So I was in the medical field as I was in nursing school. And, then I, I literally was in the field for 4 months as a nurse. And I was like, I'm kind of getting burnt out just in general. And like I said, Dave really had taught me a lot about just the entrepreneurial world and how you really get time freedom with that. And I was like, man, what would it look like if I just quit? I'm like, what is everybody going to think? And I quickly realized that it doesn't matter what everybody thinks. And so I exited the medical field 4 months after me graduating nursing school, and hopped on board with the company that Dave had, founded and he's CEO of. And now I'm in the financial space. It's a very interesting turn of events.
Awesome. I did not realize that you guys worked together. I guess I did in a sense, but I didn't realize like you had, like full time, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I laugh about this too. He kind of soft recruited me into the business when we first met. He messaged me and he's like, hey, I just have to ask you a question. Can I just have your phone number? And I was like, oh, okay, what is this? Like, what? And we got on the phone, had a really wonderful conversation. But he was like, since you're in the medical community, the opportunity that we have at Legacy Company is the name, would really work well with you. And you could do it part time, referrals. And I was like, try to recruit me into this right now. Like, what is that? And so it's funny because the other day I was actually thinking, I was like, he literally recruited me and now I'm here. And I'm like, but I'm loving it. So
Aw.
it's funny. But
That's awesome. I love that.
yeah.
So so tell us about the legacy, like what all does that entail? I know it's financial. So what do you do?
Sure. So we are a wealth management company. And when we say wealth management, a lot of people like their ears shut off, because most people think, wealthy individuals are, millionaires and billionaires, and that's not the case. And I'm sure a lot of people, listening, and you ladies as well, could identify with wealth is not just money. And that's something that we are big on educating on. I've been very fortunate to be mentored by Dave. Dave has been in the industry for 14 years, got his start in health insurance and then life insurance, and then kind of worked his way where he's at now. And so we do a lot of estate planning. We do life insurance. We talk about retirement. And here recently, it's interesting, and it's such a God thing that you reached out to me about the podcast. And now I'm here is I actually just went on a women's leadership summit last week with one of the life insurance carriers that we write for. And it was all about how women specific, I mean, we are not taught financial education in society. We are not taught that in
Right.
school.
Yeah.
We're taught very basic things. And women specifically, just in my opinion, in our household, like Dave leads, I know not every household is the same, but for me, that's how we do that. But a lot of women don't have that. And
Mm-hmm.
with that, they also don't have financial education because maybe, the man took care of all that and they were kind of left in the dark. We actually have a client currently who is experiencing that. She's going through a divorce and she has no idea
And you're
about
even talking simple bill budgeting, right?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how to budget retirement, as far as just even how money works, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, most people don't know that anyways. Well, I shouldn't say most, but we're just not taught the correct things, and it's super unfortunate. And that's something that I've actually been very passionate about lately, especially since that conference. That man, I'm like, I want to, I don't want to say I want to empower women. I want to encourage women to dive into that and get educated because it's so important. Even if you do have, your man leading, it's important to have that knowledge because let's be real, not, we're not going to live forever. That's, we all
Right.
know that. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you end up outliving your spouse, it's super important information to be had.
And both partners can bring something to the table. So for Jonathan and Samantha, for example, Jonathan is like the money guy, the numbers guy, like how to like figure out how to make, money off of, using credit cards and all of these different things, budgeting and whatnot. And she's really good at the thrifting side. So really collectively, they both have a part in it and it works out really good.
Yeah. Trying to find shortcuts to anywhere like we can, and sometimes, I'll help him with that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my role. But yeah, it is, and it's so much better. Like we need to get a lot better at doing like our monthly budget together. Like he gets on and does them all of the bills on Saturday morning, and we'll talk about it, but I want to sit down and get back into the routine of actually like budgeting, doing a full budget together each month. But it helps you to like it's going to strengthen your marriage too, or your relationship, because you're bonding, you're team building, then you're focused on like, okay, these are our goals together, and it's just naturally something that will, it like has two benefits, it's gonna
Yeah.
strengthen your relationship and help your finances greatly. So
And in this economy,
yeah.
we all, I think, could, get wiser on our budget because right now we are scraping to get by. And I'm always like interested to learn and whatnot. And we're good at not having debt and doing that stuff, but we're not, I'm sure we could be doing things to save and, being strategic and making it fun, which we've never done. So I'm excited about this podcast. I don't know what direction we're going. For those
We're kind of,
listening, we always
yeah.
like, so Samantha brought Rachel in, and I'm hearing this for the first time with you all. So I'm excited though. I'm really excited about the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and to kind of caveat off of, what you both said, I've had to learn this, like, this is, I should have prefaced it with this. In my family, we did not talk about finances. Like
It's
actually
taboo. Yeah.
every financial conversation was always, well, we don't have enough. It's always, well, now we have a car broken down and it was always negative.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's why I was like, when I met Dave, I was like, I don't want to talk about this, and Dave grew up the same way. Like his parents were his dad was a postal man and his mom was an artist. So like he did not grow up wealthy. And that's, part of his story. And I didn't either. And it's really cool to have those two, similar backgrounds with not talking about finances and then bringing that to the table. And like, you know, you have to have those conversations. That's how you build, I'm not a relationship expert and we're not married yet, but I've seen enough marriages to know that I feel like, there's just not open communication, especially with finances. And
It's a top struggle.
it
Yeah,
is.
it is, and it's a top reason for divorce. I think it's
Yep.
like intimacy and finances are the top two for divorce. So
Yeah. And it's just a topic that it has to be talked about. And that's another reason why, if it's unfortunate that, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but in my opinion, our society, there is a lack of males that are in the position to lead. And I think that our society unfortunately doesn't set up, men
Haven't been
to be
taught.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
So, and I'm definitely like, I'm not the woman that's like, I don't like men. I'm not like that. Never have been like that, even though the negative relationships that I've been in. But it's just the unfortunate truth. And so I feel like women need to have that encouragement to be able to lead when they're not being led.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's why I'm so passionate about this. I'm like, we have to get this information out to women, and just get them encouraged. So
I can't wait to see what your greatest epiphanies have been along the way, from going from like not having any knowledge to about it to meeting this awesome Dave guy to like, whoa, this is like a whole new world. Like I want to get there. I
yep.
just feel so far off.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of epiphanies. I mean, there has been a lot. When I first met Dave, I'd unfortunately, like I said, been through some really negative relationships. And it was like the twilight zone. I was like, is this person real? And I know that probably sounds silly. Maybe other people have been through that, but I was kind of going through like is this too good to be true? Because the boxes that I had put other men in, he didn't fit in those boxes. And I was like, where do I put this person? Because I don't know what to do. And yeah, I mean, just listening to, the information that he has been taught. And then obviously he was like subconsciously mentoring me, on the finance side. Man, I'm telling you, when you open the veil, it does not go back down. It never goes back down. And so, yeah, I mean, just realizing that your time is extremely valuable, and, letting go of the medical field was extremely difficult for me, just because I had a man that could and wanted to lead, but I was stuck in an independent, I have to work and I have to, bring things to the table, because I was unfortunately the leader in all my previous relationships. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, man, there's a ton to unpack there, but just a ton. So he's truly amazing. He's taught me so much about myself and been very patient with me. Um, I'm just very blessed.
Okay, so Rachel, I originally reached out to you because I just loved your like hard work, your motivation, and just you're someone that is like a no excuse mentality. And so I thought you'd be great for just speaking on that aspect. Um, tell us, has that always been how you were? Has that always been your mindset? Did you develop that mindset? Just kind of walk us down that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always had a sense of resilience, and I'm just now learning, because I was always like, I have resilience, especially in the military, like you have to have
Sure.
resilience.
Yeah.
And I've definitely realized that although that's a wonderful trait, it was actually kind of like a coping mechanism too. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people talk about motivation. And I
Mhm.
used to be one of those as well. Like I was like, yeah, I need to be motivated. And then I think at some point in your life, you kind of realize like, I'm not motivated, nor do I really want to be. And
Yeah.
so,
And it
you,
usually
It's
only
all
lasts like five
hogwash.
minutes and you do have it. Yeah.
yeah. And so I realized that motivation is kind of a lie. And I
Mhm.
kind of adopted that thinking, and I was like, well, if there's no motivation, then like what is there,
Yeah.
driving what I do or what we do? And it's really momentum. I mean, you can't get up to speed in any aspect without momentum. I'm a science person for sure. You can kind of probably tell with my brain. I'm like momentum, potential, but momentum, that's the only way you gain speed. And so there's a really great book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. If
She loves that one. She's
Yes,
trying to
Yeah.
get me
We've talked about
to
it a
read
lot.
it.
amazing. Yeah, and it's if anybody listening has not read that book, please read that book. It's a very easy read. But he talks a lot about just choosing to be better 1% every day.
Mhm.
And man, when I read that, that blew my mind. You just have to choose, and that's so simple. But with all the distractions that we have in our life, everyone, it's so easy to choose the easy route and, not get better 1% every day. But
Mhm.
you gain that momentum by choosing over and over again. And it just becomes a habit. I know that sounds so, kindergarten, but it's true.
Can
Um,
you give us an example of one thing that you've done or something that you started doing that you weren't doing?
yeah. So I guess I always revert things back to fitness. I'm not like my background is not fitness, but I've actually recently been thinking about maybe getting my personal training license, just my certification, just to have it. But I don't know. I feel like with fitness for me, it kind of clicks. So, you know, getting up and I have to work out in the morning or I will not do it because when 2 o'clock rolls around, I'm like,
Yeah.
my cortisol's already down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just with fitness, just, waking up and kind of getting in the mindset of like, I want to work out, I get to work out and just making that choice. And I know it is, and this is why motivation is not, I truly think it's a lie because I don't get up and I'm not motivated to work out. I just
Mhm.
choose. David Goggins talks a lot about, although I don't agree with all of his stuff, David Goggins is
Love
really good.
him.
Do it.
I said, oh, I love him.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's got a mouth, but he's,
That's what I was
his
saying.
story is like really good.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I actually saw him speak and he was talking about, he's like, you think I wake up motivated every morning? He's like, I wake up and I'm like, no, and I want to go back to bed. But he's like, I want to be that 1% every day. So I'm 1% better. So yeah, I mean, just for fitness, it's really everything for fitness for me. And then, there's other little things as well. My boyfriend Dave talks a lot about just supplements. We take not a ton of supplements, but like our green shake. And I'm very adamant. I'm like, in the morning, I wake up, I drink my water, and then I choose to do my green shake. And I'm just really regiment with that. And it's like building a muscle, no different.
It's just a mindset. I love that because I think there's people out there that are unmotivated, whatever you want to say, or they think they are because they perceive these other people that go and they crank. They
Yes.
perceive them, they must just like doing it. And a
Yes.
lot
Mhm.
of times it's not that. Yeah, you get fulfilled. Like, I think where I'm most fulfilled is when I check things off the box. Then that pleases me, but it's not like you said, you wake up and you're like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to get through this whole list. Yay. It's like, choosing to do
Yeah.
that. So
Yep.
I think that's a good perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, sorry, I was gonna just say that for a lot of people too, I think that use for the if you see those people and it's like, wow, you can just tell they really love working out. It's like it builds. It's like as you do it more and more, that's when the love comes. But then you still have the days where you don't feel like going to the gym or you're tired or you're sore or you just don't wanna, but then you just gotta, choose to do it. But the love for it will build. Most people aren't just instantly like, oh, I love running. It's like over time building that.
And I also think I'm in a season of overwhelm. So then I'm in a constant state of feeling like I'm failing versus just the 1% more. Like wake up and do it. For me, it would be wake up and do your apple cider vinegar water. Check one thing off the box, get it started. And it does. It's like Elizabeth Elliot. One of her famous things she would say is do the next thing. So, and it spirals or it starts to snowball. So,
Yeah, and I think that's for women, and I've talked on this before, for women it is extremely challenging. I mean, I would just assume I'm like this and I know some other women like this, so I'm sure other women struggle. It's a challenge because we are so wired to just, have our lists. And even if you're not type A person and like lists, in your brain, that's how women's
sure.
brains work.
Mhm.
And it can be extremely easy to get overwhelmed and then we do nothing. It's like, but we have a
Mhm.
billion things to do. So it's, it's just task
Or
overload.
you do things, but you don't feel satisfied because of all the things you knew you. It's like, I think when you get so overwhelmed, sometimes priorities get shifted. So you're not feeding yourself or your kids as healthy. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't consider myself somebody that gets overwhelmed and I don't do things. I crank, 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 but I'm like, whoa, why didn't I prioritize those things? I flipped it yet again because I'm trying to get through this to-do list, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I journaled that this morning. Actually, it's actually kind of funny. I was like, I need to just slow down. And,
Yeah.
I had a my routine was disrupted this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, my day's over. And I was like, hold on a second, chill out. And I went outside and I just got in the sun and I just laid there and listened to the trees. And I was like, okay, my routine is fine. I'm not, the world is not going to end if I don't get every single thing done.
Mm-hmm.
Including my fitness. It's funny that I said that my fitness this morning did not happen because my routine was disrupted and it just wasn't going to work. And so I think it's important to, as women especially, to take those times to rest and give ourselves grace.
That's
We
good.
we talk a lot about grace and giving it to everybody else, but we
Yeah.
very rarely give ourselves grace. And I think it's so important because we need that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So
Yeah.
count your wins and stop and take a deep breath. That was
Correct.
really good what you did, because I would be the same
Yeah.
way. Oh my gosh, I didn't get done the things I expected to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have such high expectations for ourselves, and we, like I said, our brains, we know this. Our brains are not built like men's brains. We are very task oriented, and a billion people need us at once, especially when you're a mom, and it's just easy to put yourself last. And that was one of the themes as well at that conference that I went to last week, is you have to seed into yourself first. And I know that sounds kindergarten, but it's like, I feel like we have to hear that often because we forget. It just like leaves our mind. Like, I don't have to take care of myself. I can be superwoman. And it's like, you are superwoman, but not in the way you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, moms do I feel like the choosing, what I was talking about earlier, very well. They do it best because they do whatever it takes to keep moving because they have to, to take care of the kids and the house and, just women in general. And it's funny, God actually has a strong record of people telling people to go and, to choose to go, like Noah building the ark and Abraham going to the promised land and, Moses, the blind man, all of the disciples. And sometimes we're like, we just forget that we also have to go and make the choice and get that momentum. That's how we get momentum. And the Bible just would have looked extremely different if all of those people would have not, obeyed and listened and went, just gone. So
I don't have the motivation to do that, God. No, I'm just kidding.
just picture
No
like, hey,
one said that.
I'm not motivated today,
They
God.
didn't have motivation music back then, guys. What were they going
I
to do
know.
without the beats?
Or TikTok or anything, is it just me? Like, if you gotta clean or like get on like clean with me videos, I watch a couple and then like, okay, I got this.
Do this. That's awesome. Yeah, it's just interesting. We just forget. And I think that's why, I've been not so great about this in my season of my life because it's been very hectic, but just getting in the word because you realize, oh, all of these people kind of have the same problems. The root of the problem is
Yeah.
normally the same.
Right. Right.
Dave always joke, we're like, yeah, first world problems, but it's true. I mean, the root of all the problems that we deal with are biblical.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So experienced all of those things, and so it's just really cool to kind of relate back to that. And it's like, oh, it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, but it's simple. So
Mm-hmm.
My pastor has said a few times, and I don't know what study it was, but basically they found that the people like taking a Sabbath rest. So they found that people that did integrate that into their busy routine actually did end up accomplishing more. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but
Well, yeah, it's like the parable of the two men racing to cut down a tree, and then the one stops and he takes a break and he sharpens his axe, and then the other one just keeps going the whole time, and then the guy that sharpened his axe and rested cut down way more.
that's good. I need to look that up again. I don't recall that one,
Yeah.
but yeah.
After I said, I was like, well, that's good. It's
No,
totally made up, but it's
it's
like a
true
good,
though. It's being wise, right? And resting,
right?
and probably when you take that time to rest instead of just doing the next thing rapidly, you're like, okay, like you can maybe get regrounded, reprioritize, settle in a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
have peace again. So yeah, that's like you said, wrestling with a busy schedule. Samantha's in the same boat too. It's really actually almost prioritizing rest also with it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, I think it's the Navy SEALs. They use I don't know if it's like just a phrase that they use, but I believe it's slow is fast, fast is smooth. It's one of those combinations. I don't have it in front of me, but my boyfriend always tells me that. Dave always tells me that because I'm like I try to be so efficient, and I think efficiency equals fast, and it's not, because
Mhm.
that's when things happen, and
Mhm.
it disrupts your routine. And yeah, I mean, taking those times to rest and pause. Last year, my word of the year, I didn't start doing that until like, I don't know, 2 years ago, was Selah, pause. And that was like extremely important for me because I've just been go, go, go my whole life. My mom's always told me, like, you just never stopped going. Like you were like the Energizer Bunny. I'm like, well, it transferred into adulthood. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it's definitely been a trait that, I feel like in life you have to, take the unfortunate things that's happened to you and, turn them into I almost said motivation, momentum, and just use them for good. A lot of the traits that we're like, oh, I hate that about me. And it's like, well, refocus it to something else. And I'm sure it'll be fruitful. So,
Mhm.
so I feel like
Oh,
that's just my mantra, I guess.
that's good.
Yeah.
It was last night I went to Cultivate at our North Road Church had a women's event called Cultivate, and Maria Granados was speaking, and she was talking about taking all of your gifts and whether um, how we use it for God versus sin is as if you're building something, each gift is a brick, and you start building this house for yourself. That is when it's sin. But if you take it and you're using those bricks and building it for God in His glory and His kingdom, then all that stuff that we think is not that useful or different or whatever, He can turn it and use it in and be like, hey, you have this for this specific purpose in life. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. That's actually a really good way to look at it, because I think we get going so quickly, and then we're like looking around, we're like, I'm pretty sure I just built all this stuff for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can start saying yes to all this stuff because we're like, oh, this is good, or um, good intentions with it all. But it's like we have to stop and be like, okay, God, even if it's all good or all for a good cause or good mission, what is the most important? What are the things that you want me to spend the most time on? And, just be actively praying about that. And before we say yes to anything, are we checking and saying, like,
Mhm.
God, is this on my agenda? Or maybe someone else needs to pick this up.
Yeah. I've had many people recommend that lately. I've just been like, I don't know how to be all of these different places. I don't know how to still be a wife and a mother. And they're like, are you asking God first before you say yes? So I'm trying really, really hard to do that now. So,
Yeah,
So
I
good.
think it's interesting, like, because I've always worked, I don't want to say normal jobs, but I was never an entrepreneur before, obviously now. And so doing that, taking that leap has really opened up a ton of opportunity for me to do what God has what He wants, me to do. And I don't know, it was probably a year and a half ago, probably 2 years ago, I started a women's online community called the
Yes.
Untangled Woman. And I was so excited to start that, just really encouraging women through the journey of untangling everything they've ever been taught that was backwards. Society teaches women so many backwards things, and we get so confused, and we're misaligned with our purpose. And I just wanted to create a safe space for women to come and just share. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm not trying to be anybody's therapist, but I wanted to create a space for women to feel safe, because that's something that I've always struggled with in my life, is safety. And when I started it, I was so excited, and I don't think I really checked in with God. Like, I knew that was on my heart, but I don't think it was the right season. And so I actually had to pause the group for a little bit and then pick it back up. And it's actually I guess unpaused. I restarted it up actually today. We
Oh,
were just in
awesome.
a very difficult season of, I shouldn't say difficult when I say this. We bought 46 acres, very blessed. but we are trying to get that excavated and ready to build a home on eventually, years down the road. And so it is a process. If you are trying to build a home, it is, especially if you're trying to GC it yourself, it's very difficult.
Nikki's done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's a project on another level. I want to say though, I want to pause and say like, good for you, because I don't know if you've felt like that page, that group has been your calling, and I can imagine it being so fulfilling and helping women and having that safe space. So good for you saying, hey, right now I'm going to have to press hold. I don't think most people would do that. I think there's a wisdom in that. And then also if you're stopping and you're pausing and then you're like, okay, God, now I want you to lead, like it's probably going to be like, boom.
Yeah, it
All because
was,
you were disciplined. I
Yeah.
love that.
it was and it's funny because it's interesting hearing that perspective, because for me, I was thinking like, well, I'm not being disciplined. I was like, oh, because I'm this person that like, not that I failed, but it just wasn't the right time. I wasn't listening, kind of like a negative mentality. But I appreciate that because that's kind of given me a different perspective. And it's true, just taking the time to, I've been really trying to heal some things that are inside of me that I didn't want to not project. I don't know what word,
Mm-hmm.
I should use for it, but in that community of women, I talk a lot about vulnerability. And I feel like I've been like hiding, like, oh, I don't want to be vulnerable and tell them, whatever. And it's like, first of all, nobody really, I don't want to say nobody cares, but it's like, nobody knows my life really, on the inside. And it's just yeah, it's interesting when you start to listen to God and really just, sit quiet with yourself and just lean in, and things just come tenfold. And so I'm really excited. I've got this renewed sense of drive being in this new home, and we're on 5 acres, so it's like extremely peaceful. I'm a nature person, so if I'm not in nature, I'm not the best person I can be. But
So do you still have your other land too?
yeah, so and that's part of the reason why we moved is we were in a subdivision, nothing against subdivisions. I have to have land and nature.
Be able to
And
sit outside in the sun without
yes,
neighbors.
yes. And like I love people. I
Yeah.
do, but I want to go out on my porch and not have to wave to everyone.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, we just feel extremely peaceful and blessed out here, but we do have our other property as well that we are trying to make lemonade out of lemons out of. So it's been a process, but it's a beautiful piece of land, and it's only like 15 minutes from where we are.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
So,
good.
so restarting and unpausing, pressing play back to your women's community. Do you feel like God has rerouted you in any ways, or like given you different direction, or is it like we needed a pause, you needed to go through healing and the busyness of all that, and now like has he changed the direction?
I don't think it's necessarily a directional change. I think it's more of just a kind of forcing me to stop, because
Mm-hmm.
that's something, like I said, I struggle with, like pausing and just being like, okay, sometimes it's a short pause in life, but then also, I think it was like 7 months that I hadn't, been active in the community. And I just made a post today and I was like, listen, God is like so cool in the ways where we don't have to like prove, not
Yeah.
that I have to prove anything to them, but it's also like, you just have to lean in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really a directional change. It's more of just say, Rachel, please pause
Yeah. I
and
love
take care
that.
of you.
I'm
So
back. She's
yeah,
back.
that's
So
exactly what I put on the post. It's funny.
you talk about not motivation but momentum, and you talk about having your women's community and there being a lot of vulnerability out there. Do you have any themes that women struggle with that you see more consistently than others?
Hmm. Yeah, I think honestly, and this was one for me, and I think I actually thought I was alone in this, but a lot of women actually don't know how or feel safe enough to use their voice in any capacity, whether that's in a relationship or just out in the world and the workplace. And that's directly, let's not, like I said, not a counselor, not a licensed therapist, but I've been through enough counseling and
I've been in
therapy.
the world.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. To know that that's directly linked to safety at some point. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do that, is to create that safe space and allow women to come and use their voice and voice whatever,
Mhm.
and I definitely think that's one. Another one is, a sense of purpose. And I know that's so
Mhm.
general, but I think I've seen, and this is interesting to talk about on this. I'm not sure if you ladies would agree, but I have seen a lot of women kind of identify and make their purpose in life, or like their identity, as in like being a mom or being in a certain career. And
100%.
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
definitely.
hard not to, almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like men, this is my own thought, and I don't know if this is accurate. I feel like men even struggle more than we do. I think men struggle with knowing their purpose. Now, if you have a career at like an all, there might be some things
Right.
that they attach it to, but I
Mhm.
would think women don't, but they attach it to, like you said, being a mother. And I think more than a wife, usually it's like directed towards the responsibilities of being a mother and trying to
Mhm.
do a good job there in the career. So I think
Yep.
that's just interesting to maybe discuss and think about. And that is not a good thing when your children are your purpose. That's a really slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, I for the longest time, just kind of real. I'm very observative, and like, I've never been married before. I've never had kids, but I've always, I'm 32 years old, and so I am blessed. I used to think like, oh, I'm gonna be an old mom. And I'm like, I've gotten so much experience by watching everybody else.
Right.
And so I feel blessed. But yeah, I mean, I've seen women that, I attach that identity, and like their kids always come first. And not every household is the same, but
Mhm.
when we have children, like our children are not coming first. My husband is going to come first,
Mhm.
God, and then my husband.
Sure.
Right.
Um, it's, it makes my heart sad, because I look at women and I'm like, sweet girl, like you have so much. When I say this, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody, but you have so much purpose than just being a mom. Being a mom
Mhm.
is wonderful. It is beautiful. It is such a large, opportunity and responsibility. But God also has so many other things for you.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I know that that's that can be part of a woman's purpose, but I don't
Yeah,
ever.
for sure. But if we put it's just like Maria's,
Yeah.
again,
I
her
just
South
pulled it up.
accent.
I just pulled
Yeah,
it.
it was, she read this book and I forget what book she said it was. I need to ask her, but there's a triangle and it's divided in three sections. The top one is your identity, and that should be child of God. If it's anything else, it's a slippery slope, because what happens when the kids grow up and they get married, you're no longer, like, you're a mother, but you're not needed. So does that
Yeah.
mean your purpose is ended? Or if you put your purpose in, you were created to be a speaker and you're in a car accident and you lose your voice, is your purpose over? No, because you're still alive. And so our purpose, our identity should be a child of God. And then our, what's the next one? I'm
Purpose.
drawing a
The
blank.
purpose is to
Purpose.
glorify God in her chart.
Yes,
So
yes.
purpose.
So identity
Yeah.
is child of God. Purpose is to glorify God. And then the last one is
She has
achievements or
assignments. So, like, where are you being called to
assignments.
right
Yes.
now? Is it a podcast now? Is it your women's
Yes.
community? But that is not who you are. It's not your purpose. It's
Right.
not your identity. I love that. I think that's so
So
good.
yeah, and that's, one of our assignments, if you're a mom, is to be a mother. If you're a wife, it's to be a wife, but that's not who you are,
Yeah.
essentially. So I love that you're speaking on this.
Yeah, yeah,
Must be a message God needs to get out there,
Yeah.
because it's been on repeat lately.
it is. And I think, there's no fault. I never fault anybody for that, because when I say it's easy, I'm not saying, motherhood is easy, because I'm sure it's not.
Mhm.
Or, being a wife, or just any career.
It's
It's
easy to get wrapped up in it.
correct. Yeah. And that's the key. It's easy to be like, searching for, I don't say searching, finding your purpose, aligning yourself with God's purpose is not an easy thing to do sometimes when you have so much going on. And so it's easy to just kind of attach yourself to like, well, I'm a mom or I'm a nurse. Well, that must be my purpose. Cause I went through that. I was like,
Mhm.
that's why I've done so many career changes. I was like, maybe my purpose is maybe in a vet tech, or me, and that's a normal thing for
Sure.
Yeah.
humans to go through, in your early
Right.
20s. You're supposed to try a lot of things, because
Hmm.
we should not be expected. And this is a rabbit hole I will not go on this podcast, but at 18, we are not adults. I do not agree with how much pressure is put on, not just women, just anybody to pick your career at 18. I'm like, you are
Don't
not
even
even
know.
adults,
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's just so easy to get, attached to that. And I definitely think that is a message that women specifically, but also men need to hear that, you're not rooted in your career. And you get
But I
kind of
think that's what you're searching for. You're searching for what you're good at, what maybe you are perhaps going to be assigned to do, but that again has nothing to do with your purpose.
what's really cool is like for me specifically, I didn't notice this at a young age, but I wanted to help either people or animal or just things. I've always wanted to help. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll help animals. And then it kind of transitioned to, well, I'll help people. And the root of my purpose, I know, is helping women. And that could look, completely different in whatever season it is, the assignments that you talk about. I love that. And for the longest time, I was like, man, well, if I'm not a nurse and I'm not helping people, like how am I going to help other people? And it's such a perfect segue because I never thought I would be in financial services to today helping just people in general, but now more specifically women with their finances, with retirement. It's just I literally look at my life sometimes and I'm like, this is so odd. God puts you in
How
places.
did I get here?
Yeah. I'm like, how did I, looking around, you're like, how did I get here? But it's it's such a God thing. It really is, because I'm learning so much. And I want to pass that legacy on to obviously our children when we have children, but also to just other families and other women. So
I
it's a
love
blessing
that.
left the medical field.
So, do you want to give us your top three things that you would do to get started on helping someone get on track on a budget, get on track with their finances? Um, any tips, tricks?
And then after that, I can give you a real case scenario and you can give me some tips.
From an anonymous phoner.
Yeah, they just called it and their name rhymes with picky.
So funny. Yeah. So it's interesting because, like I said, I did not grow up talking about finances, but 62% of women, there was a study done, 62% of women are actually concerned about like planning for, retirement finance, just finances in general. 71% of those same women have no plan. And then 90% of women actually said that having a plan matters. So this may not be news to, you all or people listening, like, well, no, duh. But I just found it interesting because, women inherently want to be protected. Like, even if you don't, come out and say it, like women want to be protected. That's how we were built. So that's financially, emotionally, physically. And, we talked about society, unfortunately, has created an environment for men they're less in the position to be able to protect and stand up to create a legacy. And so why I'm saying this is because, it starts with the budgeting and having those conversations, that's honestly, that's step number one. Like if you're in a relationship or even just with yourself, doesn't have to be just in a relationship, but if you're not having those conversations, like, well, do I actually need this item? Now, I'm not talking about never buy yourself things, because that can get down a slippery slope as well into a scarcity mindset. And God does not want that for us. There's reality, and then there's also living in scarcity. And I'll be real, majority of my life, I've lived in scarcity, just because we didn't really have a ton. And so, having those conversations with yourself and with your spouse, significant other is number one, because I think that's where it has to start. And then, devising a plan where Dave talks about a lot, what gets measured gets improved. So if you're not writing things down, like I remember this before, before Dave,
Bless you.
bless you. Before Dave, I had a little notebook and I would write down to the dollar, like how much I had in my checking account or whatever. And then I would go, I knew, when my bills would be out, and I would go line by line and just like do a whole line of like, addition and subtraction, and to see, the next week or so how much money I would have. That's how much, I mean, listen, I was not making good money at all in the medical field during nursing school. And just taking that time to see how much you're spending. Because I guarantee you, we deal with this with a lot of the younger
most
generation.
people aren't even doing that step. They're running with their debit card, and we are guilty a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I am too. Like, I'm not exempt from that. Like, just because we're in financial services does not mean we're, exempt. It's a practice and a habit that you have to get into, because then like, I think it's funny. Like, Dave is very much so. He doesn't. I used to keep like a checkbook, like the little
a ledger.
Yeah, like, and I'm not even, I don't want to say I'm not that old, but I mean, most people in my age,
you're pretty young to do that, I would say. Where'd you learn that from? Your grandma?
So I remember technically my second job, but I worked at Steak and Shake when I was 16, and I had I wrote checks, and I felt so cool. And I'm like, so I don't keep an actual checkbook anymore, but I have an app, and I would actually, this is kind of a tip and trick too, that I would advise people to do. You can go online and look at your statement, on your banking app. But I think, because there's a lot of stuff that's like pending and, not on there, whatever, I keep this little checkbook app, and I don't know, I think it's just called checkbook app. You don't have to put your account numbers in. You're just taking a snapshot and putting it in the checkbook app of what you spend. And I use that thing every single day. Like, I make a purchase, I'm like, I'm putting this in my checkbook app.
So it's not connected to your bank?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So like, it's safe. You can put, I have my credit card in there, my, all kinds of stuff. But it gives me a good snapshot of everything, and I'm able to keep track. And so
do you have to put a label on it if it can't recognize it? Like, this goes in the free spending, or like, this is grocery.
So it's basically like, I wish I could pull.
You're making all the labels yourself.
Correct.
Okay. So like when you go, so you label them. It doesn't connect to any like accounts or anything.
So then you could look at what your monthly spend and see, oh boy,
yes,
food was ridiculous, which is where ours
you
is.
can see where it's going, basically.
Yeah, and I like I said, I use that for all my accounts. I use sometimes I'll look, you can give like, if there's like a little graph that you can pull up, and it says like, because there's categories every time you spend, it's like, okay, food or eating out or something. And like, I'll go to the category, I'm like, babe, we ate out quite a bit this month, like we need to chill. So I think it's honestly a really good tool. I don't even know where I found it. Like, I think I was just like, I miss writing in my checkbook. Who says that? And so I started doing that. So yeah, it's a little checkbook app, and I definitely highly recommend doing that. And then, as far as like, I don't want to say higher level things, but you gotta measure what you're doing first. You can't jump in and be like, I'm going to invest when you don't really have your everyday spending down. You should really be living off of, what is it, like 20% of your income? Like and that is not feasible for everybody. I get that.
What does that mean? So that is not any like utility bill or mortgage, right?
So you're, without spending anything outside of like, like entertainment stuff like that doesn't count. But like bills, groceries, things that are needed, car payment, stuff like that, you should really be it's called your burnout rate. You should be keeping that at like 20%, which is kind of crazy. And like I said, it's not something that everybody can do in this economy. I totally get that. But if you keep that in your mind, it helps you lower your what you're spending each month. And if you're like, hey, I need a new car, you're like, well, do we really need it, or is it a want? You can kind of gauge it that way. So it's extremely hard to do. And we talk a lot about education and everything, and it's some of these things, I think people listen and they're like, okay, well, this economy sucks. Inflation is a real thing. Wages are not going up with inflation. And I agree. And it's just the facts. And that's where you get into a conversation of the entrepreneurial space where, there's so many things that we can do that can create extra income.
Mm-hmm.
It's unreal. Like, let's be real with this. Like, there's kids on YouTube making money.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy, but
Sure.
we just have to get creative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the age that we're living in, that you have to have multiple streams of income or you're not really going to make it, comfortably.
Yeah.
So
And it's not, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So going back to just, if you're not operating under that 20%, it doesn't mean do nothing. It means
Yeah.
start somewhere.
Right.
And then going to your last point, Samantha and I, of course, quit our jobs. I don't know if you know the whole story about us, but within the last year, we quit our jobs. We jumped into this community, the podcast and everything. So we are getting ready to try to monetize the podcast. And then we are going to start some merch line, things like that, just to get some, cash flow incoming. And then we are finally going to be talking to some attorneys about potentially starting the 501c3. But we are thinking along those lines too. We're not just going to put all of our eggs in one basket with the podcast. We need to try some different routes. And we want the Lord to bless us so that we can bless others. But that's what we are even in the current process of doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's amazing because a lot of people won't or do not have the avenue to just be like, well, I'm quitting my job. You know what I mean? That was kind of my story as
Yeah.
well. And I couldn't imagine as like a mother, like it makes my heart so happy that you both like listen to God and you're like, I'm going to do this, because that's scary. I couldn't imagine having little humans that depend on me. So kudos to you. Kudos to you for sure.
Okay, so to summarize that up, we have the first one was what's your budget, right? Like actually knowing what that is. Your second tip is I'm going to get that checkbook app. I'm excited about that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that they had those. So write everything down so that you can see where you're spending. And then third was to work on trying to bring in a third source of income, another source of income. Point number 3, not 3 sources.
I
Start
mean,
with 2.
there's women that clean houses. They'll
Yeah.
just pick up one job a week, or there's things like that we could be doing. Or hey, I'm gonna watch kids during the summer break. So there
Mhm.
really are other avenues of income if we just stop and think about it. And then I always go back to just being my former career. No business, especially a big oil company that I worked for, they had a future plan. They had a current plan. They had to have a
Mhm.
budget. Like think about your finances as a business. What do you have? What are you able to do? And what are your near term and your far term goals? So I need
And
to
you,
work on this, but I know that I should be.
I know the things. I just need to do it.
We're just good at not having debt. We're not
Yeah.
crazy spenders, but we overspend on food and we want to eat healthy organic food. So you talk about supplements. I mean, it is hard in this economy. We're in not having my job. We are very, very much paycheck to paycheck. We are living in 95% of what we earn, not
yeah.
that 20% right now. But it's just the reality of it. But I do always know there's things that we could be doing better. Like Jonathan, for example, he uses certain credit cards for certain things and he gets thousands of dollars back at the end of the year. So I know there's always
Yeah.
tricks. I need to invest time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and this might make a lot of people upset. I don't know, but I think unfortunately, now I'm not going to totally bash this person because I'm not like that. I think Dave Ramsey is a very good tool to use for the and I have a reason why I'm saying this, the budgeting, trying to get out of bad debt. Here's my only hiccup with the rest of his methods is we have, and we've seen this. This is not like this is my opinion. We've seen this happen where families do the Dave Ramsey program, which is amazing because we all need to know how to budget and to not just spend our money frivolously. But after that, people are like, well, now what do I do? And we see a lot of individuals that, you talked about, you're really good at, not having debt. We teach that all debt is not created equal.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things such as good debt, utilizing money in a way, if you're responsible, to take that money and use it. So you can take the money over here and go invest and have that money work for you. And so, it's not like you're just paying my credit card off every month. It's like I have money working in different places. And I think, there's a space in the financial industry for people to really grow on that, because it's not taught. It's just not. Everybody thinks that all debt is bad, which, listen, there is a lot of debt that is bad. I don't know the percentage, the statistics, but there are a lot of individuals, most Americans have high amounts of bad credit card debt. And it's not always a fault to their own. Like I said, this economy is
things happen
right now. So, I mean, that's another, and that I guess that would be another tip for me, is just kind of doing more research and rewiring your brain to not think all debt is bad. And I'm not saying that you were saying that by any means, but
oh no, I follow. It's like us investing. We're investing in what we're building right now, which you would say, could be debt, although we don't have time, but still, we're investing for the potential. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. That's the key. That's the
Yeah.
key for sure.
We're we're coordinators for the Dave Ramsey classes. And although I do love his methods and stuff, we we haven't done class in a really long time. But when we talk to people, we've helped friends and stuff along the way with finances and budgeting. When we talk to people, we always talk about like the credit card, because we never had credit cards before and we thought they were bad. Now, credit card debt is bad, but to use them and to earn the cash back, how negative saying that we make thousands back each year, it's like, why not? But the flip side is you have to be really disciplined and go in and pay it off right away, which my husband is really good at that.
Many people are not. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's like we have to tell people, like, you have to wait in. Yeah, it's this benefit, but some people are just more prone to get in trouble. You have to like know yourself and be like really honest with yourself. Like, know yourself, not just be like, oh, I'll do it. You have to be super disciplined in that.
The behavior around money is the main problem. It's communication and the behavior around money, like how you were raised. That's what has to be flipped and disconnected and then rebooted before you start investing and getting credit cards. Because I mean, you just said, like, most people will get into trouble with credit cards. I've had one specific credit card since I was 18, and the limit up until like 2 months ago was only $500, because I was like, oh, I don't want to up the limit. And I'm like, okay, like, come on, one credit card. So you have to know yourself. And I mean, you have to rewire that behavior of money and that relationship with money before you can start doing other things. So
that's good. Can I ask you one question? I know we're getting down to a few more minutes left, maybe 6 minutes. Since you're a busy person, entrepreneur, doing all the things, working out, do you have advice or after reading Atomic Habits, is there a routine? Like, do you have advice for the woman out there that is listening that, I guess, what are your tips and tricks to fit it all in? So like you said, you work out in the morning. Is there any other helpful things that you can share that has really helped you not stay motivated, but continue to have that momentum throughout the week?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I do think a lot of people in general do struggle with that. And I struggle with that sometimes still. But I think finding, it's not even a number, but it's like, a few non-negotiables that every single day you do this without a doubt. Now, for a personality like me, like what happened this morning, it's very dangerous sometimes for me to have those non-negotiables. I'm like, if I don't get it done, then the whole world's gonna end. It's like, okay, just hang on. So I mean, finding those non-negotiables, like for me, and it's gonna look different for everybody. For me, it's for sure getting my green shake in the morning, because I put like lion's mane and everything in there, so it's like beneficial for me for the rest. Yes. And so, and honestly, actually, should be everybody's non-negotiable. Drink water, please.
Yeah.
Please drink water. Like, everybody walks around severely dehydrated, and that is, it can lead to a lot of our problems. And I know that's why I've been drinking the whole time. But non-negotiables. Non-negotiables, and definitely drinking water. It's just, I tend to put a ton of things on my to-do list. And just
that's what my problem is. I was just going to say that. Doesn't have to be all or nothing.
3 or 5. I don't know, three to five, I feel like non-negotiables. And then, I told Dave the other day, he was like kind of not feeling well. And he's like, oh, I really wanted to get this done. I was like, well, why don't you pick a different task to still be, getting things done, but it's not, because he was like, man, I just don't really want to be standing up. And I'm like, well, go in your office and let's do some work sitting down, So you have to be gentle with yourself and kind of negotiate with yourself too. But those non-negotiables are key
Yeah.
because it keeps you
Good.
grounded. So
Yeah.
So
I love
good.
that. That's great
Yeah.
advice.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we want to ask your final thoughts, or should we just jump into the end? How many minutes is there?
We have 3
Yeah.
minutes left.
Okay.
Maybe do a final thought real quick. And then if like within like a 30 seconds, if you can.
Okay. So Rachel, do you have any final thoughts or a quote or something that you want to leave us with?
Honestly, like it's kind of, I guess it kind of has some things to do with, what we talked about, but just make sure you don't quiet your voice in life. And I say that because that is something that is going to be a constant thing for me to work on in my entire life. And like I said before, a lot of women struggle with that. So don't quiet your voice when you think that you need to speak up with respect.
Yeah.
I should add that in there.
That's good.
I
I
love
love
that.
that. Can you let the listeners know where to follow you, where to find you out there? And if you are starting a podcast, you know what the title is, that we can look for that as well.
Yeah, so my podcast coming soon, hopefully very soon, will be The Untangled Woman. And then finding me on social media. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram because I can't have any more social media platforms.
I
So
love that.
Facebook,
So you're like, okay, what's practical? No, I'm like learning from you today, I feel like. Because again, I'm all or nothing, but you're like, let's just do these. I love it.
yeah, I can't overwhelm myself. Yeah, so on Facebook, just Rachel Oxenfeld, not Field, because most people want to put an I in there. Rachel Oxenfeld. And then on Instagram is Rach _ the Untangled Woman, or sorry, Untangled Woman. So
I love
yeah.
it. Okay, well, I have one more question. What are you having for dinner tonight? It's always how we close.
Dinner. Probably meal prep. We have some something fancy. We have some ground turkey in the fridge that we'll probably make like turkey wraps. We're big on meal prepping, so we do a lot
That
of
doesn't
leftovers.
surprise me after getting to know you. Yeah. I would have been surprised if you're like, well, maybe we're eating out. No.
Yeah, that's funny. Yep. Turkey wraps.
Love it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
See
See
you
you
next
next
time,
time,
Mama.
mamas. Yay. It's gonna
Awesome. Thank
cut
you
us
so
off.
much.
You're amazing, by the way. Yeah, good find, Samantha.
Yes. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And then,
I feel
yeah,
like
of
I
course.
took so much away just by you saying like, no, what is practical? Like I can't do. I'm like, I could do this and I can also do this, but there's wisdom in that. There really
Yes.
is.
I can see